record so I don't forget. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
The point, oh, one more. The point of this training series was actually the end goal was besides informing people of, what we're doing and, how to prepare, was to see who would stick it out to the end. And
is this the last session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that way we have dedicated people.
Drop off.
Stephen and I were chatting today, or emailing back and forth, and so it's good to.
Did you have a drop off each session, or pretty steady?
Not really. No, it was pretty steady.
This is good news night. I just got off an ADL, ADL event. How do you like that? So I'm hearing all good news.
That's all good news. Yeah, you don't hear much in this
no.
in my side of the world, but
it's unbelievable. Yeah.
So look, I will stick to the script, but we can do this a little bit, less formal and have more of a discussion. But I still want to run through quickly, just kind of a recap of the sessions. And that'll be, kind of a good segue into, some of the things that we are planning and want to do as next steps. And I think that part will be, more of a conversation than just me speaking. But let me do the run through of the recap. I'll hopefully do that in like 5 minutes, and then we can continue as I just mentioned.
Okay.
Does that sound good? That sounds good.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I don't remember how many each of you attended, but I know some of you watched the recordings, but regardless, the opening session, which was back in November, was a panel of representatives from some of the major organizations, Jewish organizations that deal with anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment, and they came and they spoke about what they do. And the idea of that opening session was to get people excited for the coming training sessions. So the ADL discussed, how they track and compile data on extremism. They gave us at the time the most updated, stats, which only went higher and higher as we progressed through the year as far as anti-Semitic incidents. We also had representatives from CAMERA discussed, anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment, comparing how, anti-Semitism is covered as opposed to, racism, against other minorities. And that was very interesting to see. Well, it wasn't good for us, the Jews, but it was interesting to see that the manifestation of that bias, unfortunately, but it is the truth, and we do need to know the truth. We also heard from representatives from Jewish Federations of New Jersey, speaking about how some of, the overview of our parent organization, Jewish Federations of North America, and how their policy trickles down into our local arena, and how we advocate based on some of what we get, or a lot of what we get from JFNA. Stand With Us came and spoke about anti-Semitism in schools, high schools, campuses, etc., and kind of discussed some strategies on how to deal with that. But they came back a couple sessions later to do a one-on-one. So that was the opening session. And then we went a month later or so, we went into session 1. We talked about some of the community engagement opportunities, here in the heart of New Jersey, working with local, state, and federal legislators, supporting, JCRC efforts to combat bias and hate, building awareness and educating our community, facilitating conversations about issues affecting the Jewish and also the non-Jewish community, which in a sense would help us build relationships and forge alliances with groups outside the Jewish community, all in the name of combating hate and anti-Semitism. So that was session 1. Session 2, we brought back our colleagues from Jewish Federations of New Jersey. And Josh Cohen, who spoke, went through what is advocacy, or he called it advocacy in action. And he spoke about, what advocacy is, who can be an advocate, why it's important to advocate, where can we advocate, best practices, do's and don'ts, certain strategy plans, and really focused on 4 ways to combat anti-Semitism, which is advocating and educating and building alliances and just overall communication. So, I thought that was a really great session. I learned a lot and got a lot of tools that I ended up applying later on in Washington, D.C. A month and a half ago. So that was actually really good timing for us. Session 3 was Stand With Us. They came and talked about teens and anti-Semitism, gave us examples of some anti-Semitism in high school, on social media, what our teens are dealing with, some of the trauma that the teens are experiencing because of that, and key takeaways such as, first of all, to learn how to identify anti-Semitism in the schools, to learn how to speak out, and to do that, you need to be educated, and it's on us, the parents and the grandparents, to speak to them at home. Those were some of the key takeaways we heard from Stand With Us. Our 4th session was AJC, the American Jewish Committee, and really focused on building coalitions and how that plays a role in combating anti-Semitism. We first received an update. They also conduct a survey, and also, in addition to the ADL, anti-defamation, which really has a complete and full audit of an annual report, which is rich with information. But AJC also has a decent report they put out, and it was interesting to see what they had found out. But I had brought AJC in to talk about building coalitions. So how to find partners, looking for organizations with shared values, checking, making sure that, our visions are similar, learning how to test the waters to make sure that, our relationship can survive. Is it reciprocal? What are the sticking points? Can we accept those points? And then hopefully to get into joint advocacy by building trust and, offering solidarity, doing, writing joint letters and, joining each other in joint meetings, and so on. The issue of Israel came up, and that's especially if we're dealing with Muslim organizations. Israel is usually the elephant in the room and is only discussed if there's really a strong, solid relationship. So that was interesting to hear from AJC. And then our last session, what was it, last month? End of May, we brought in the ADL, and they had discussed the audit that had just come out and went through all of the information, basically telling us and showing us what we kind of already knew, that anti-Semitism, and extremism in general just continues to skyrocket. We saw the numbers, and it wasn't great. So I just ran through about 6 months of sessions and information very quickly. And the reason why is because we have the recordings. There's no point in me going over every little detail. Now, if we want, or you want, you could always go back and watch. So I'll pause for a second and see if any of you have questions or comments on the sessions. I'm happy to hear and listen. Going once. Oh.
It's not a pretty picture, Dan.
Nah, it's all good.
I don't mean what you're saying. I mean what's going on in the world.
No. Stephen, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I was just wondering whether with this the rise in anti-Semitism, to what has it been mostly attributed to? Is it mostly to the conflict involving Israel, or is it involving conditions in the United States? And I'm just wondering if they, with all the statistics that have been collected, whether they've really kind of been able to narrow down what's causing all this.
So it's definitely a combination. There's no question. I'm sure you'll hear differences of opinion of what weighs in more than, you know, other facts or situations or environment. For example, in May of last year, there was a 300% or so spike in anti-Semitism, and it was 100% tied to the Hamas-Israel flare-up. There was no question about that. So in that specific case right there, the answer is yes, it's connected to Israel. But in general, I think it's just the trend. People are just coming out of the woodworks. They have been for the last, 3-4 years. The internet is a blessing, but it's also a huge curse. It's a propaganda machine where the algorithms just really support the hate. Just by using certain keywords and the information that'll show up on your feed. I mean, that is a huge factor. So if I had to pick one thing, I would pick that as being the biggest catalyst, the spreader, of all the hate that we've been seeing. And it's so easy to access.
But the internet and the social media is spreading
Yes.
all kinds of anti-Semitism. There's a lot of the more traditional kind. I mean, the only thing that I'm familiar with is YouTube and some of the things I sometimes see on YouTube. But some of it is traditional anti-Semitism, like Jews are rich and all that kind of stuff, and or Jews control the world, that sort of thing. And then once in a while you have something about the Israel related issues, and to me it's much easier to respond to people raising questions about Israel, because sometimes people have honest questions, and sometimes people just want to provoke provoke you.
Right.
But I guess the internet allows you, or tends to corral you into the things that most animate you. And if you're animated by traditional anti-Semitic tropes, then that's where you're going to be heading. You're going to find out
Yep.
all the websites and all the blogs that contain that.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's so easy to access. Go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
Can I give the maybe a similar answer, but in a different form? There's a song which I can never remember the name of the group that sings. It's current, but it starts out with jokers on the left and clowns on the right. And in a way, it's very applicable here.
Steve Miller Band.
Excuse me?
The Steve Miller Band.
Thank you very much.
It's
Okay.
not Steve Miller Band. It's Steelers Wheel. Stuck in the middle.
Whenever I turn on,
No, Joker's on the left. It's Steve Miller, isn't it?
No.
I'll accept that.
All right.
But whenever I turn on Jeopardy,
Steve Miller Band is I'm a joker, I'm a smoker, I'm a midnight toker.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, Joker.
That's
Okay.
but whenever I turn on Jeopardy, if the music is from the 90s and later, I'm dead anyway. I go back way before. But the point I wanted to make is this. The reason I use that kind of an analogy, if you will, the left today really is the anti-Israel bias. The squad in Congress, others will find any kind of a reason to dump on Israel. The most recent one being Jerusalem Day and who's going to be visiting there. And that doesn't count the settlements and why are we giving money to Israel, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
On the right, you have the white supremacist group. And that, as I heard you describe it, is the anti-Semitism, at least that I grew up with, maybe you grew up with, where, yes, we control the world, we control the banks, we even control the law firms.
Yeah.
I wish.
Okay, now let me give you the bad part of this, all right? As if what I said wasn't enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that was a good part.
Yeah. What particularly bothers me is that both of these groups, but particularly the left, started anywhere from 5 to 10 years ago to become what I call masters of marketing. They learned how to use the internet. They learned how to spin stories. They learned how to create the big lie. They went out and they marketed for those who would be disenchanted with Israel. Okay, the right didn't need to be, they've always been. But now we added in the left, and you see all of these lies and everything else. Just listen to Alexander, whatever her name is, Ocasio.
Yeah.
Okay. And she just stands up and lies. So one of the things, and we've all started to talk about this, is we have to go and deal with the people on the ground. We're past the stage of writing books and articles and, op-ed stuff. We need to get out and meet with the people and do various kinds of things, which we have been planning for. And hopefully, you'll join us. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Well, what do you mean by meet the people? You're talking about the people who purvey this material, or the people who are the target audience?
We need the people to meet the people who are uneducated.
I see.
Younger people who really don't have much of a clue of what the real history of the Holocaust was. People who no longer know what happened in 48, don't know that the Palestinians walked away from, last count, it was 3 or 4 settlement agreements that, didn't work. Reach the next generation, so that when they come across something and somebody says something, I'll give you, and Roy knows my son, so he'll appreciate this. There are many times when my son's walked out of the Port Authority and, he's approached by a Jew for Jesus. And he says, if you do this and you do that, and my son, who just loves to do these things, would say, okay, let's talk about it. And he would wipe the kid out because that kid wasn't as educated as my son is. So we have got to have people who really understand the situations, can talk about it, and respond to it.
So does this mean a committee of us and like-minded people, or does it mean educating the broader public, Jewish public, so that they can, more of them can become missionaries for this?
The answer to your question is yes, but we're not looking to do it for the entire country. We may wind up being a demonstration model, but reaching out to synagogues, trying to reach out and add education material to the schools. Dan and I met with a couple of mayors over the last month or so, to say, hey, this is what you need to know. This is how you can educate people, but also know that if an anti-Semitic incident occurs in your community, call us. We're not just going to wave our hands. We're going to go in and try and do something about it. Okay.
And we're also, there are plans in place to meet with New Jersey legislators, on our local level for the same reason, to first of all keep them updated on the situation. Most don't know that anti-Semitism is that bad. They just don't. They think, and this is the truth, they think because we're white that we don't have problems. That's the God honest truth. So it's up to us to keep them informed. That's one. Two, once they're informed, Joel mentioned it, we want to talk to them about education. That's a huge factor. That New Jersey has a mandated Holocaust and genocide, education curriculum, but it's not implemented really.
No.
It's not organized. Any school can do whatever they want just to check that box. And that goes from assigning one book to read, or it could go to an elective, 3, 4, whatever the semesters are in high school, month course, or simply, okay, we covered it in our World War II studies, end of story. So that's something I'm looking to change. I know it's a big task to take on, but nobody's doing it, at least in our 2 counties that we're responsible for. So that's another thing, and another reason why to meet with legislators on the state level, on the federal level too. I mean, we have in our catchment area Bonnie Watson Coleman, Frank Pallone, and Chris Smith. So Chris Smith and Frank Pallone, no problem. They're supportive of the Jewish community, of Israel. There's no issue there. Bonnie Watson Coleman, and it's out of it's a combination of ignorance and other priorities. So she is, look, she supports the Jewish community just because she's that kind of a person. She's not racist and she's not that kind of person, but she has a lack of knowledge about Israel and Palestinian, the conflict. And, that gets her into trouble sometimes with her Jewish constituents. So we've worked on building a relationship with her office this past year, and we've been fairly successful. So now we have an opportunity to educate her office, even proactively, even. So, nothing I see is going to be like, one and done, right? This is an ongoing process to talk to the leaders of our community, the leaders of our government, and to keep them informed. And by the way, that's another a strategy to build an alliance, right? We saw that in that session we had with AJC. You're building trust, and therefore you're building an alliance, so that when and if we need one another, hopefully we will be there. And by being there, I mean, if it's speaking out against an incident, or if it's listening to us and passing a legislation, for example, this nonprofit security grant, right? We're asking for $360 million for the country. It's probably going to happen, and that's because of years of a national effort, in this case, of the Jewish community pushing for it. And by the way, it benefits all nonprofits, of course, not just Jewish. So the Jewish organizations have really been on the front line as far as pushing that. So these are just some of the examples of what we've been working on and will continue to work on, and how we can make a difference. Yeah, I mean, that's really key. It's the relationship building, and pushing our agenda, making sure it doesn't disappear from anyone's table. Because I think it can easily happen. It can just easily disappear for so many reasons. Yeah.
And you never know where opportunities will present itself. Without attaching myself to a political party, I got a call from the Democrats in Monmouth County, and who said, "Oh, we want you to meet Andrew Kim." Now, do I care about Andrew Kim? Maybe, I don't know. But I said, sure, I'll be there, but I have my own ulterior motive as to why I want to be there, okay? And I'll take that opportunity to try and, talk about what we need, and mostly ask him what he needs. And I think the other thing that I point out, and Dan made a very important point, which is we've got to make sure that whatever we do is not only for the Jews. It needs to be, for anybody who is clearing their throat, for anybody, or any group of people that are, that have bias crimes committed against them, or hate crimes, or whatever the case may be.
Is it Stephen or Stefan? Stephen. So
Stephen.
So
Yeah,
Stephen,
Steve.
you asked me briefly in our email exchange, where you might fit, or what. I think I'll interpret that as what can you do, or what are the opportunities, for volunteers. I'll pretend that that's how I interpret it, so I'll go with that. So
Okay.
one of our issues is getting the word out. So there's a lot we do at the Jewish Community Relations Council, and a lot of it is not always, front page news. But we think that if we're able to, get the word out more, our community will be more interested, obviously, in what we do, and therefore will want to be more involved. So we're thinking of asking people to set up parlor meetings, let's say, and I can come and speak to a small group and, go through, present and show what this little group, what we're doing, and how they can help. We're looking to make connections in the interfaith world. So, for example, if a volunteer had, these kinds of connections, they would make the introduction with me or one of our leaders, our committee members. That's what we're looking for from volunteers. Also, it's not just attending, these training sessions and meetings and maybe helping us write a letter or something. Like, we want, Joel said it, like, on the ground. We want to really get, we want to spread the word as much as possible. So these are just some of the things that we're asking of our volunteers. But I mean, you could also, if people are comfortable, they can facilitate discussions. They can run, presentations if they want. There's a lot to do, but it's all pretty much under the umbrella of educating, getting the word out, informing. To get to that moment where we'll need to take real action with a community leader, a legislator, congressperson, a congressman or woman, any of those. Yeah, I mean, Joel, I don't know if you wanted to add to that or anyone else, but getting the word out is key.
I think everybody who's seated around this Zoom tonight knows that relationships and being able to reach people is maybe the most important thing that we have in beginning to more strongly fight anti-Semitism.
So, Stephen, when I get back, I mean, we said when I get back from vacation, I'm happy to set up a time and we'll talk and we can get more in detail about, opportunities. I can send you, I can try before I leave to send you some information, things that we've done. You can see what, I can send you, for example, an agenda of one of the meetings we had with our legislators. So you get an idea of what we spoke about and how it works. Obviously it's something in the past, but regardless, like, you can see, and then we'll see. You can tell me what fits, what works for you. And if it's something that you want to get involved in. Hey, Henry, how are you?
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Hi, welcome, Henry. As you can see, we're a very elite group today. Elite group.
Intimate. Wonderful.
Yeah. So we kind of ran through everything fairly quickly. Sorry, Henry, because it was a bit more informal than usual. So, I've pretty much covered what I wanted to as far as wrapping up and what next steps are. If anyone from the committee, Liran or Henry or Joel, want to add anything, now would probably be a good time.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we have a very strong plan of action for for our ongoing efforts. Really, really good that we were able to get that meeting with the state senator. That's really exciting, and I think that we're building up to more big things as well over time. The main thing is that excuse me, the main thing is that when we were planning this program over time was to get out get a message out to the community that we were active and had their backs, and to attract more people into our cadre, so to speak. We had really good attendance at pretty much all of the events. And it seems like we have some interested parties who want to kind of grow and participate more in JCRC events and programming. What we need to do though is, and this is something that we haven't really looked at on the agenda in terms of what our tangible goals are, because it's not exactly a tangible goal, but it's something that nonetheless I think we all need to start thinking about very seriously. And that is, how do we get our message to outside of our kind of typical Federation bubble, to Jewish people who are not necessarily involved, who are also younger and could potentially start growing into leadership roles over time. We have a problem in the Federation, and I mean, I'm going to say it, and you guys can can like it or not, but we have a problem in the Federation, and that is that we definitely skew older. Even I, on the younger side, I'm turning 40 this year, and I know that might seem, well, what is this guy complaining about? He's a child. Yeah, okay, but I'm getting old too. I can't do young professionals events anymore. I'm way past that part of my life, and we need that feeder system. And I was hoping that through this series we would attract some younger people. It doesn't really look like we did a ton of that. I mean, there were definitely some new people that were not previous participants, which is good, and that's great. And having an older skew in our demographic actually helps us a lot, because certain people have connections that younger people don't have. Certain people can give more money that younger people necessarily don't have the budget for. People that are maybe have a little bit more time because they're not dealing with young children or so on and so forth. There are a lot of those advantages, but if we're not growing, we're shrinking. And I don't know what else to. I don't know what to do. I mean, my friends, none of my friends have any real time or interest in participating. But again, I'm not the right age group anymore either. By the time you're my age, you've probably already, first of all, you have children, most likely. I mean, maybe you don't, but most likely you do. And that cuts out 90% of your free time, 95% of your free time. More importantly, though, by the time you're in my age range, you've already formed your allegiances. You have a synagogue that you like, most likely. You probably have donated to one of the, if you're even active, I'm saying, if you probably have donated to one of the Stand With Us, ADL, APAC, whatever, any of the alphabet soups of the Jewish world. And you're not really so interested necessarily in opening up an entirely new, avenue of participation if you already feel like you're already in something else, which is why I really believe, and it's not something for any of us personally anymore, I don't think, to do, because again, my ship already sailed. But if anyone here knows anyone younger, children, grandchildren, friends of theirs, who has ever shown any interest whatsoever, and I'm talking about people in their mid-20s, not in college, maybe recently graduated, maybe they were involved on campus in something Israel or Jewish related, and are looking excuse me, and are looking to scratch that itch because they don't have it anymore. I can tell you that I went to Rutgers with an incredible group of talented, engaged, interested, participatory students. There were 30 of us or so that were continually dealing on campus with various issues, and I am the only one of them that's involved in the Jewish Federation. And I'm also either one or one of two or three that are involved in anything at all, period. Everyone else has moved on. They have professional careers. They're not involved in anything. They're lost in this regard. And the only one person that I know for sure that isn't is my wife, who is on the Hillel board. So that's bad, because two people and both of them live in the same house. So we got to do something. And you know, I know Roy, I know you're involved in Hillel too. Obviously, Hillel is very interested in maintaining their relationships with students who graduate, because they need them in their own feeder system.
Right.
But I have to think that there's some kind of collaboration we can do. Maybe it's too late now because it's already June, but we should think about this. And because everything takes forever to get in the works, maybe we start working on something now. We could talk to Rabbi Reed, who obviously you know that I know very well also.
Right.
So I'm very comfortable having this conversation with her too, where we do some kind of co-branded or co-funded or some kind of program for seniors who are about to graduate. Maybe they're moving to New York, maybe they're moving to Philadelphia, maybe they're not, maybe they're staying local. And if they're staying local,
They should be involved.
they should be involved. At least with Hillel. I'll take it if we can
Yep.
just encourage them to continue being in the Hillel orbit. That at least is something, so we don't lose them completely. But if there are people that are either, you know, we should be so lucky that there are so many people who want to participate in Hillel that they just can't handle all of them, and then that becomes a feeder system to the federation. But there's also overlap. You know, there's also stuff that we could do together. There's stuff that we could do in partnership with a young professionals group that's based of recent, you know, Rutgers graduates. And by the way, that's just Rutgers. There are other universities and colleges in our catchment area. There's Monmouth University. We never talk about Monmouth. It's crazy. I mean that college is almost as big as Rutgers, and it just obviously doesn't have the same student body and the same Jewish student life and everything. But that, if anything, that should give us even more impetus to try to work with them.
Luran, could I interrupt you for a second? Because there's something you're saying that's so broad and so important. But for the sake of Henry and Stephen, I know Dan has gone over the essential three pillars of what the JCRC has done. You know, call it the religious communities, the political communities, and then everything else falls on Luran's shoulders. Okay, that is true. And one of the things that Dan and Luran are aware of is, for all of the people who have now begun to volunteer, to lay out the plan where Luran's goals can be achieved, and then bring it back to the group, you know, so that those people who have volunteered to work with Luran can really begin to make some concrete achievements and make a mark within the community. So I would, you know, and again, my apologies to you, Luran, but you know, what you're going to be doing is critical and that important. And I don't know if tonight's the night to lay it all out here, even though everything you say is true. Okay. But what we're going to be doing after Dan gets back from a vacation, which he believes he has deserved. Okay. Okay.
So getting
I'd
sorted.
love to take the opportunity to take a shot at my cousin here, but he absolutely has killed himself. I mean,
No question.
there's we would
I
not
didn't say
have
he
any
didn't,
of
I
this
didn't
without
say he
it.
didn't deserve it, but you know, we have to let him feel like he does as well. And we're going to be, Dan and I, and like Luran, like Amy Mallett from the political side, etc. The three in groups of three, not everybody in a big thing. We're going to sit down and we're going to close the door and we're going to come away with a plan that will work, that will involve people, that will have some achievable goals that we can set out for ourselves. So the next time we all meet as a group, we can really say we've accomplished something. Okay. I'm substantially older than Laurent, and then I'll shut up, okay? But what I have found at this late stage of the game, particularly now since we just had our third grandchild, and I found out what a view it is when you're the Zontig and you see the Moyle come up with his knives and everything. But what I realized, or I verbalized, is we want them to be a Jewish community and an Israeli community for them after, I'll say, I kick the bucket, okay? So that's what's driving me at this late stage of the game, even though I'd rather be out on the golf course.
Yeah.
Ron, with my
Better.
apologies.
No, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll be still a few more rounds of golf there before you
That's right, yeah.
you get to the old bucket in the sky.
Yeah, but my caddy doesn't
from
call
your-
the golf for me.
From your perch there overlooking the 17th hole at Pebble Beach, which is
Yeah.
one of the more beautiful venues in the golfing world, Joel, and Mazel Tov on your grandchild, by the way.
Thank you.
If I may, very quickly and briefly, Laurent, speaking from a perspective of having worked in Jewish community, albeit, gosh, almost 40 years ago now, the concerns that you are voicing are nothing new, with all due respect.
I know.
This is an issue we dealt with in the 60s and 70s and 80s and on, and I'm sure Dan and Joel can second that. But it is it is something that is of great concern, obviously. But when you boil everything down, you wind up with 10 or 20% of your volunteers doing 80 or 90% of the work. And that's just kind of how it is. Yeah, we want to attract and involve as many people as possible. And that can be a daunting task, as you've discovered. And certainly it doesn't mean we shouldn't try, because we will. One of the things that I recall from my days in Jewish Federation as a staff person is that if we wanted to get a group of people together, one of the best things we could do is give them something to eat when they showed up, whether it was a dessert or a bagel with a schmear or whatever it was, but just say, look, we're going to have this little spread. And by the way, we're going to have somebody come in and address our group and talk to us about this, that, or the other thing, a topic of relevance. Now, I was in the fundraising side, so it usually had something to do with this is what we need to do as a community, as a group, and we have to open our hearts and our wallets in order to achieve our goals. JCRC is a little bit of a different approach. I understand we're looking for people who can take an active role in interfacing with other elements in the community to present our point of view and also to listen. I think that's important as well, and so that we can begin to create some consensus and a sense of community with like-minded individuals. But certainly I'm, as Dan knows, I'm more than happy to participate in whatever way I can. I apologize for showing up late. I thought for some reason this meeting began at 8 o'clock, but I guess I misread the material. But be that as it may, I hope that during the course of the planning that somehow that you will find a way to, I'll find a way to participate in that in some way, and willing to do so.
Let me remind you, you're already past that. You're already participating. You're in.
Okay, that's
You're
cool.
in, my friend. You're
Good
there's
active role.
there's no question there.
Right. So just,
at all.
if I could
Go ahead,
just
Lee.
go back to finishing what I was
Go for it.
going to say about 10 minutes ago. So what I'm trying to say with all this youth movement idea is going into this year, we planned out a series of events for the community to expand our tent and get new people in and so on and so forth. From that, we have a few new people on this call, and as far from what I know, dozens others who expressed interest in participating as well. That's great. we also have a plan of action pretty much for what we want to do in terms of the general community. What I'm saying is our next thing that we should be working on is the youth movement. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not just lamenting where we are in the community. What I'm saying is the same way that we developed a series of programs for the general adult community, we should try to work maybe with Hillel or something where we could create a bunch of events for seniors who are graduating this coming year.
And look, I'll add, and I'm sure you know, this is also it's not just JCRC. This is an issue that, you know, we should be dealing with Federation.
Right, but why I think that JCRC has a
It's
specific
a hook,
role
yeah,
to play here is because we will give the students access to things that they could not get anywhere else.
Correct.
When I needed help on Rutgers to get Frank Pallone, Leonard Lance to get on campus, it was the JCRC that helped me do it. There are plenty of students on college campuses that are interested in meeting their member of Congress and working with them. It is crazy for us not to leverage that as an entry point. There are plenty of students who are interested in interfaith stuff that goes outside of just a college campus necessarily. There are so many different opportunities that we can think of working, and we know that Rutgers, and I keep harping on Rutgers, but Monmouth for sure, and others as well, if we can get in there. But Rutgers, we obviously already have a natural connection to, and there are 7,000 Jews there. So let's get 15 of them. It's not a lot, right? So that's all I'm saying. So I think that should be our next focus, because we're not going to build another series of events for the community that are going to talk about anti-Semitism. We already did that. Maybe we'll do that in 2024, 23, 24. Maybe we'll alternate one year doing for each side. But in tandem with all the actual actions that we should be taking, that Dan laid out earlier in this call, and as we've discussed before, that should be our next recruitment avenue, in my opinion.
I think that's a great idea, actually. Joel, I'll just say, I think that's a great idea. That could be the next, the focus of our next big
it doesn't have to,
series.
by the way, it doesn't have to be 6 or 10, or it could be 3 or 4 or 2 or even 1. But I think it should be more than, I personally think it should be more than 1. And I think that we can even start by trying to invite a couple of students to come with us to one of these meetings. We can work with Rabbi Reed and say, hey, who are your top politically minded, well-represented students that are interested in helping the Jewish community? Easy,
and it'll be
easy.
And it'll be on us, the committee, or the volunteers, to organize whatever it is we're trying to, use to bait or to attract these younger, people. So it's not just. I don't think I need to clarify that, but I wanted to. It's not just we're not just going to be focusing on the younger. Like we're still going to be very much involved, working hard to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to make it happen, basically. Yeah.
This is. I'm saying.
Yeah,
we already have a very clear path forward on political action and all that stuff that we've been talking about now for like 3 years now.
Right.
What we haven't really started working on is this next generation kind of thing.
That's a good point.
Henry, I just wanted to tell you the hole behind me is the 7th at Pebble.
Oh, 7th at Pebble. Okay, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Short part 3.
The 109-yard hole.
Right.
When we see each other, I will tell you a very funny story, but not now.
I thought it was the 7th. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think
thought
it
it
was
was the
17th, which also backs up against the.
Yeah, I always get it confused with the 6th because my memory is bad.
No.
Anyway.
Dan, I don't know where you want to go in terms of the rest of the meeting.
No, we're good. I think we discussed everything. It ended up being a very nice conversation. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. It's almost 8:30, so we can definitely leave it here. But I'll be in touch.
Where are you going, Dan?
What's next?
Where are you going?
I'm going to France.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where in France?
We're going to be mostly in Paris. My wife has a lot of family there.
My father's cousin lives in Le Coudray. He used to live in Paris. Yeah, he's
Oh.
about an hour south of there at a golf community, Lacoutre.
Cool.
I told him I want the best bottle of kosher French wine he can find to bring it home.
Mm.
For
I
which
will
I
look
will
for it.
reimburse him.
Nah, we'll see. In any case,
Henry and
go
Stephen,
for
the
it.
two things that I would ask of you, which are easy ones,
Sure.
are please, I know Dan, as I read through all of the programs, which I couldn't always attend, but, I hope you've all gotten a good sense
Mhm.
of where we're going. I'm going to put the next onus on you until we meet again, and that's this. Where would you like to spend your time and efforts?
Okay.
No commitment, I'm not asking you tonight. You may have questions, etc. But we need you to start thinking about that.
So Henry and I have actually had conversations and
We talked about some.
talked a lot about
yeah.
interfaith work, and Stephen and
Mhm.
I are going to talk when I come back, and see, what
Wonderful.
works. Yeah. And Roy is
Okay.
Roy. We all know. Roy, I don't need to. I know. I already know.
You always tell me, if you need to meet any of the politicians, you let me know.
That's true. That's you're the guy I turn to. That's true.
Laurent, could I
yeah.
ask you a favor, please?
Yes.
Can you stay an extra couple of minutes after, you, me, and Dan, just to pick a date that the three of us can sit down and you can present your plan, for going forward and who you can bring in, et cetera, expand on many of the things you've talked about tonight, because that's going to be your thing.
Yep.
Okay. And it'll
Okay,
be just the three of us. When we end that meeting, we will all be on the same page. You will have defined the resources you need, and you can go and have all the fun you want afterwards. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
well, let's do it.
Do we have some
So-
dates we can meet?
Hey.
At that now?
Thank you
I'll
for.
wait.
Well,
I'll wait.
let's just
I'll
let the
wait.
others go
Sorry.
if they. We
Yeah.
don't want to.
No,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Stephen,
you.
I'll talk to you as soon as I get
Dan,
back.
have a wonderful trip, a safe
Thank
trip.
you, sir.
We'll see you when you
nice
get back.
meeting
bud.
you all.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay.